Welcome, ladles and jelly spoons, to Kohigh Mathy's YouTube channel and this month's 20th anniversary retrospective review. We're diving into the bizarre world of Double Fine's cult classic Psychonauts. Can you believe it's been 2 decades since we first entered the minds of camp counsellors and conspiracy theorists? 20 years, almost as long as I've been drinking the same pint of best, wherever I've put it. Is that the one with the little brain fellow? I remember my grandson playing that whilst I was brewing a lovely Darjeeling. That's right, Keith. Psychonauts was the brainchild of Tim Schafer and released in April of 2005 for the Xbox. It follows Rasputin, or Raz, a young circus performer with psychic abilities who sneaks into a summer camp for psychic children. Oh, a bit like when I snuck into Dog and Duck after hours, except I didn't have psychic powers, just a desperate thirst and a spare key that I'd borrowed from the landlord. It's not quite the same, Pat. Let's talk development. Double Fine Productions was founded by Tim Schafer after leaving LucasArts, where he worked on classics like Grim Fandango. Psychonauts was their debut title and it took about 5 years to develop. 5 years? Nothing. Did you know it takes 7 years for a badger to reach full emotional maturity? They're very sensitive creatures beneath all the stripy gruffness, you know.
Is this what the inside of my mind looks like?
Not yet. You're still traveling to the
Psychonauts was Double Fine's first game, led by Tim Schafer after he left LucasArts. He took a few Grim Fandango team members with him. LucasArts had dropped point-and-click adventures, so Schafer set up his own studio. The original idea for Psychonauts came from a dropped peyote trip scene in Full Throttle. It wasn't family-friendly, so it got cut, but Schafer liked it enough to build a new game around it. Raz's name came from animator Raz Mavian. When Mavian joined Double Fine, it caused some confusion, so the team settled on Rasputin instead. Easy to trademark, still close enough to the original. Schafer and Eric Wolper from Old Man Murray wrote most of the dialogue. Early on, Schafer wrote mock Friendster profiles for each character to help him figure out their personalities. It also helped the rest of the team get a handle on them. To make dialogue feel less robotic, characters had lines stitched together with things like pauses and coughs. That way, they didn't sound like they were on repeat. The summer camp setting gave kids a reason to wander around and explore. One level stood out, the Milkman Conspiracies. It's a warped take on a 1950s suburb inside the mind of Boyd, a conspiracy theorist. Schafer had seen Capricorn 1 as a kid and got curious about how people fell into conspiracy thinking. At a team dinner, someone said, "I am the milkman, my milk is delicious," and that stuck. Boyd's backstory, someone who's constantly getting fired from a job, were partially inspired by a local man that Double Fine sometimes paid to clean their office. Now, G-men were blank-faced spies based on Spy vs Spy. An artist, Scott Campbell, ran with concept, and Peter Chan pushed the idea further by turning the flat suburb into a vertical maze, which led to gameplay where gravity shifts and Raz has to walk across walls. Players had to hand G-men specific items which mimicked old adventure games, and Schafer wanted Wolper to write those lines, but we were too busy, so Schafer just did it himself. Raz was nearly an ostrich with mental health issues, don't you know? But Schafer dropped it. He figured that no one wanted to be a deranged bird. Richard Horowitz, Zim from Invader Zim, voiced Raz, and they tried casting children for authenticity, a bit like Peanuts, but the acting wasn't strong enough. Horowitz nailed the tone and gave them loads of takes to work with. Internally, the team built tools to keep development on track. Raz action status meetings focused on one move at a time to tighten the controls. They also made a lure debugger called Dougie, named after a local man they knew, to help scripting run more smoothly. Well, with so many cutscenes, writers needed more control, so they built a cutscene editor. Early on, leveling script was messy and hard to debug. 8 programmers were pulled in to clean up the code, and testing started with unpaid volunteers from Double Fine's website. Once Majesco signed on to publish the game in 2004, they brought in full-time testers.
I see a small, bunny-like animal thing.
An unfamiliar animal entity in a dream.
The game faced some publishing troubles when Microsoft dropped out midway through development, but Majesco stepped in to save the day. It reminds me of when Jim from Pub took over funding of our darts tournament after the previous sponsor, Keith, spent all the money on cheese and onion crisps. Terrible business decision, that. Let's move on to gameplay. Psychonauts combine traditional 3D platforming with unique psychic abilities like telekinesis, levitation and pyrokinesis. What makes it special is how these powers are used for both combat and clever puzzle solving. Ah, see, not unlike how I use my pint glass for both drinking and winning arguments. You'd be surprised how persuasive I can be with a raised pint of best. Oh my, he's using a rolling ball to get around. Psychonauts is a third-person platformer where you play as Raz, a kid at a psychic summer camp trying to uncover a mystery. You start with simple movement, running, jumping, but you unlock psychic powers as you go. These include things like telekinesis, levitation, invisibility, and setting things on fire. You get powers by completing missions, leveling up your psi rank, or buying them with arrowheads hidden around the camp. You can upgrade your powers too, making them last longer or stronger. These powers can be mapped to buttons for quick access, but you can swap them out at any time. Now, there are two main areas in the game, the physical camp and the minds of other characters. The mental world are each themed around characters' personalities or issues, and that's where the story moves forward. You help someone work through their problems, usually ending in boss fight. Now, in these levels you'll find figments, which raise your psi rank, you'll find emotional baggage, which are unlocked by matching tags, and memory vaults, which show a little bit of backstory. Now, you can replay these worlds anytime to pick up anything that you've missed. Raz also gets a tool to leave mines instantly, or get a hint if he's stuck. Now, you take damage from baddies in the mines, and from strange creatures that come out at night in the camp. Now, because of a family curse, Raz can't swim, so water hurts him. Now, when Raz runs out of health, he respawns at the last checkpoint, but each mine only gives you a few retries. I lose them all and you'll get kicked out and have to start over. You can collect more or buy more health and retries from the camp shop.
See me when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready to learn how to really fight.
Oh, really?
The real magic happens when Raz enters the minds of various characters. Each mind is a unique level with its own visual style, gameplay mechanics and enemies, called sensors, that are trying to stamp out Raz as an intruder. Now, like the bouncers at the working men's club when I tried to bring in my own sandwiches. Oh, no outside food, he said. I told him, neither's your attitude, sunshine. Yeah, moving on. Plot. Raz discovers that someone in the camp is stealing the brains of his fellow campers, so he must use his psychic abilities to explore the minds of various characters, helping them to overcome their traumas whilst uncovering a sinister conspiracy.
Raz runs away from the circus and sneaks into a psychic summer camp. He gets caught, but the Psychonauts let him stay until his parents arrive, as long as he doesn't join the activities. One teacher, Coach Morceau Oleander, makes an exception and lets him try the basic braining course. Raz passes easily. Sasha 9, another instructor, is impressed and brings Raz into a training experiment. As Raz continues his training with Milla Vodello, he learns that Lobato is working for Oleander. The plan? Steal the kid's brains and power psychic death tanks. When Lily, another camper, is kidnapped and the instructors go missing, Raz takes charge. He heads to a shutdown asylum where Lobato is hiding. Ford Cruller gives Raz a strip of bacon, used to contact him telepathically, and tells him to recover the missing brains. Raz saves a giant lungfish named Linda from mind control, and she helps him cross the lake to the asylum. Inside, Raz helps the patients deal with their mental struggles. In return, they help him reach Lobato's lab. Raz saves Lily, restores the instructors' minds, and they face off against Oleander. The asylum burns down, and Oleander puts his brain into a huge battle tank. Raz defeats him, but the tank shoots out sneezing powder, causing Raz to lose his brain. He uses telekinesis to stick it back in, straight into the tank, fusing his mind with Oleander's. Inside the tank mind, Raz finds out Oleander's anger comes from childhood trauma tied to his father, a butcher. An image of Raz's father shows up and offers to help. It turns out to be a fake, until the real Augustus appears and helps Raz fix the mess. They defeat the final threat together. Back at camp, Raz is officially welcomed into the Psychonauts, but before he can leave, word comes in that Lily's dad, Truman Zanotto, the head of the Psychonauts, has been kidnapped. Raz and the team head out on a new mission.
Ridiculous old legend! I don't want the kids to be afraid to go out at night and walk alone on the perfectly safe paths of Whispering Rock Psychic Summer Camp.
Now, speaking of brains, did you know a properly brewed cup of tea contains L-lithium, which improves brain function? That's why I've remembered everyone's birthday since 1954. You still sent me a happy 40th card last month. I'm 57. Did I? Well, the thought was there, even if the numbers weren't. The voice acting in Psychonauts is absolutely stellar. Richard Horowitz voices Raz with the perfect blend of youthful enthusiasm and determination. The cast also include talent like Nick Jameson, Tara Strong, and Stephen Stanton. Rasputin Razakwato, our main hero, is voiced by Richard Stephen Horowitz, the same bloke who brought Alpha 5 from the Power Rangers to life.
Intruder alert!
Born in 1966 to an engineering dad who worked at Rocketdyne, Richard grew up doing impressions of Flip Wilson and Tom Jones. His portrayal of Raz perfectly captures that determined circus runaway with psychic powers who's dead set on becoming a psychonaut. The character uncovers the brain-stealing conspiracy and basically saves the day. Horowitz brings a perfect blend of youthful enthusiasm and determination that makes Raz so memorable. Nick Jameson voices Marceau Oleander, our deceptively strict instructor who turns out to be the main villain. Coach Oleander might look like a military man with a Napoleon complex, but he's actually plotting to steal children's brains to power psychic tanks. Genuine villain material right there. Jameson, born in 1948, has quite the resume. He played Russian President Yuri Surovov in 24 and now lives in Iceland doing comedy and music. Growing up, he moved around Europe with his academic parents, which explains his talent for accents. Talk about perfect casting for your final boss. Dr. Caligostro Loboto, this deranged ex-dentist, is also voiced by Nick Jameson, same fella who does Coach Olander. Talk about getting two villains for the price of one. Loboto's the bloke who actually does the dirty work though, stealing brains and running the creepy lab inside the asylum. Not quite final boss, but the lad who makes most of the plot happen. Bit like Barman at Dog and Duck. Not the owner, but the one who actually pours pints at best. Jameson brings a completely different energy to this character compared to Olander. Proper versatile, that one. David Kayes brings Fraud Crueler to life. This former Psychonauts leader, who's now got a fractured psyche, appears in different disguises around the camp. Sometimes he's a janitor, sometimes he's a ranger. It very much reminds me of myself, trying different personas, to get free drinks down pub. This Canadian voice actor is best known for being both Megatron and Optimus Prime in different Transformers series. Talk about playing both sides. Yeah. Before that, he worked in radio in Vancouver, and he also did some theatre, playing in productions like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. You see, Ford is your essential mentor figure in game, gives you tools, advice and missions. Proper helpful bloke. Unlike my so-called friends at darts night. Lily Zanetto. This young lady is voiced by Nikki Rapp, or sometimes she spells it Nikkei, which reminds me of how people can never spell my name right on my teacup down at the old senior centre. They're always writing Keth instead of Keith. Anyway, Lily is a fellow camper and becomes Raz's little sweetheart in the game. She's the daughter of the big boss of the Psychonauts, and she gets kidnapped as part of the nasty plot, poor dear, much like how badgers will carry their young by the scuff of their necks when danger approaches. Did you know that mother badgers can recognise their cubs by scent even after weeks of separation? Remarkable creatures. Now, Miss Rapp grew up in Santa Rosa in California and studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. She started voice acting in 1999 and in 2003 began voicing children in the Sims games. That's rather like how I started as a T-boy in 1965 and worked my way all the way up to, well, still a tea-boy, but now I know how to steep a proper brew. The secret is to warm the pot first. Most people don't realise that ceramic teapots need to be warmed with hot water before adding the leaves. Otherwise, you'll lose 15 degrees of temperature immediately. Anyway, Lily's abduction really kicks off the second act of the story, much like how a good Earl Grey kicks off my morning routine.
You have to promise me, only use your power, pyrokinesis, only when it's very, very important, or it's really, really entertaining.
Voice acting, In my day, video game characters communicated through meaningful beeps and the occasional grunt. made you use your imagination. Each character's dialogue perfectly captures their unique neuroses and personalities. Coach Orlando, the deranged military man with a Napoleon complex. Sasha 9, the stoic German psychonaut. Mia Vidello, the mental minx with a hidden tragic past. I say they sound like the regulars at my gardening club, especially Margaret with her tragic past involving slug pellets and the vicar's prize petunias. The soundtrack by Peter McCollum deserves a special mention too. It shifts effortlessly between spy thriller tension, carnival whimsy and emotional depth. Each mental world has its own musical theme that perfectly captures its atmosphere. The music in Psychonauts was done by Peter McConnell, same bloke who did the tunes for Grim Fandango and Day of the Tentacle back in the LucasArts days. Tim Schafer knew him from way back, so naturally they roped him in again. They dropped the full game soundtrack in 2005. All the stuff you hear whilst you're running around inside people's heads, that's on there. Then in 2006 they put out another one, a cinematic score this time. That's all the cutscene music plus a remix of the main theme and the credits tune. Bit of a bonus for the soundtrack nerds out there. It's a bit like how my local changes jukebox selection based on the day. Tuesday's a rabbit night. It makes Darts League very interesting, especially when you're trying to hit a double whilst Dancing Queen is blaring in your ears. Now when it comes to completion time, Psychonauts offers about 15 to 20 hours of main story, but completionists looking to find all fragments, emotional baggage and mental cobwebs could easily spend 25 to 30 hours exploring every nook and cranny. 30 hours? What amateur numbers. I once spent 45 hours trying to beat my neighbour at sensible soccer without blinking. Lost my vision temporarily, but gained eternal glory down Dog and Duck. I once spent 3 days watching a badger set. Fascinating creatures. Did you know they can dig through concrete if properly motivated? My garden paths have never been the same. Despite its creative brilliance, Psychonauts had a lukewarm commercial reception, initially selling fewer than 100,000 copies in its first year. However, it received critical acclaim and has developed a passionate cult following. Oh, just like my famous pickled onion recipe. Only 3 people have tried it, but 2 of them named the children after me. The 3rd can no longer whistle.
What are you doing here at Whispering Rock?
This trading facility is built right smack.
If you didn't know, it's a right palaver about Psychonauts after it first came out. Right, in 2011, Majesco's publishing deal ran out and Double Fine got the rights back. Oh, lovely stuff. Except the game disappeared from Xbox Live faster than my part disappears on quiz night. Now, Schafer had to sweet talk Microsoft into publishing it themselves, and it took until February 2012 to get it back on there. Meanwhile, Double Fine released a proper updated version on Steam. They even teamed up with some fella called Steve Dengler to help them with Mac version. That's a bit like when I got Terry from Dog and Duck to help me set up my new telly. Except Terry just drank tea and left halfway through. They even made a mobile app with memory vaults from the game, which is more than my actual memory can manage these days. By 2012 they got on PlayStation as well. Then there was some complicated business with Nordic Games after THQ went belly up. More handovers than a badly organised darts tournament. Now they even flogged it in one of them humble bundles back in 2012. Now by 2016 you could play it on PlayStation 4. 20 years on and it's been passed around more times than collection plate at my Auntie Mabel's church.
Diving helmet or something.
I see. Yes, well, we'd better get you armed.
Why? What's happening?
Oh, nothing. Prepare your mind.
The game's unique concept, witty writing and imaginative level design earned it numerous accolades, and it's now considered one of the most innovative platform games of its era, which eventually led to its successful sequel in 2021. Psychonauts appears in the book 1001 Video Games You Must Play Before You Die by Tony Mott, the fantastic editor of Edge magazine. Mr. B, you know what to do. But he won't. Yeah, Psychonauts, it reminds me of my tea blender that was instantly dismissed, but later won most unexpected flavour at the Dorking Tea Society. Now the secret was a hint of rosemary and a stern talking to while it steeped. So what's the verdict? Psychonaut remains a masterpiece of creative game design, proving that original ideas and strong characters can create an unforgettable experience, despite few flaws, like some frustrating platform sections and the occasional camera issues. It's a must-play for anyone who appreciates games as an art form.
This is a marksmanship learner's permit. It will only work when you're in Sash's mind.
Now then, let me tell you about this Psychonauts game that the young people enjoy. It's a bit like me Earl Grey, you know, it got good reception overall, but some found it a tad bitter at the end. The writing was very amusing, rather like those comedy sketches I used to watch on the BBC. All sorts of peculiar characters with odd conversations that change as you go along. Not like real people who tell you the same badger stories every time you visit. Did you know that badgers have a special muscle that allows them to close their ears when they're digging underground? It prevents soil getting in. Oh, remarkable creatures. The game takes you inside people's minds, each one a strange little world of its own. There's one called the Milkman Conspiracy that everyone talks about. Another one has you stomping around like a big giant monster. That reminds me when I accidentally stepped on Mrs. Figging's prize-winning petunias at the village fete in '83. I've never lived that down. Not everything was perfect, mind you, though. The beginning dragged on a tad with too many instructions, rather like when my nephew tries to explain his new mobile telephone to me. And the final level, Meat Circus, was apparently harder than getting the perfect temperature for green tea, which is exactly 75 degrees Celsius, don't you know? Too hot and it becomes bitter. Too cold and you might as well be drinking pond water. Now, the makers went back and actually made the final part easier in 2011, a bit like when I finally installed this step to help me reach the top shelf in the kitchen. Now, one reviewer called it a flawed masterpiece, which is exactly what my wife calls my attempt to grow a mustache in 1976.
Oh, yeah, I just love bacon. I smell that stuff and I can't help it. I drop everything and come running.
Okay.
I'll give it a solid 8 pints out of 10. It would have been 9, but that Meat Circus level nearly caused me to throw my controller through bloody telly. It reminded me of trying to order a vegetarian option at my local back in 1994. Dark times. I'll give it 4 teapots and a biscuit, although I'm not entirely sure what I just watched. Are there any badgers in it? No badgers, Keith, but plenty of mental exploration and emotional growth. Psychonauts is available today on modern platforms through backwards compatibility and remastered versions, so there's no excuse not to experience this psychological adventure for yourself. Mr. B, you know what to do. Unlike my excuses for missing darts practice, which are numerous and increasingly implausible. No, I cannot do tonight. My pint of best has grown sentient and held me hostage until I can name every winner at World Darts Champion since 1978. Maybe next week. Right, let's talk about the Psychonauts sequel saga, or as I like to call it, the longest tease in video game history. For years, Tim Schafer wanted to make a sequel, but publishers kept saying, nah, too weird, mate, which is basically the games industry way of saying we prefer safe, boring sequels, thanks. Classic corporate thinking there. The sequel saga took a bizarre turn in 2012 when Marcus Pearson, you know, the Minecraft bloke, nearly funded it after Schafer mentioned development costs on Twitter. Although that deal fell through, it did reveal other potential investors lurking in the shadows. By 2015, Schafer had launched Fig, a crowdfunding platform where regular people could actually invest in games. At the Games Award that December, he finally announced Psychonauts 2, asking for £3.3 million to make it happen. Fans delivered by January of 2016, proving publishers wrong about Weird not selling. The sequel finally dropped in August of 2021, only 3 years later than planned, which in game development time is practically early. All the original voice talent returned, including Richard Horowitz as Raz and Nikki Rapp as Lily. Double Fine even squeezed in a VR title called Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin in 2017. This bridges the story between the two games, and if you're attentive, you'll spot Raz popping up in other Double Fine titles. There's a massive Mount Rushmore size Raz head in Brutal Legend, a cardboard cutout in Costume Quest 2, and he's even playable in Bit.Trip Runner 2. Talk about getting your money's worth from character design. The cheeky lad also snuck into Alice Madness Returns as a skeleton prop and a Hat in Time as a hidden symbol. Not bad for a psychic circus runaway who was originally deemed too strange for a sequel. And that's all for this month's 20th anniversary retrospective review. If you've enjoyed our mind-bending journey through Psychonauts, make sure you hit the old like button and share this video with your psychically gifted friends. And of course, subscribe for more retro gaming nostalgia. And don't forget to, leave a comment on your favourite tea or badger. or tea drinking badger. Now, next round's on you if you don't subscribe, and trust me, I can drink you under table, over the bar and halfway to Newcastle. Keep those consoles dusted and your save files sacred. Cheerio, see you soon.